This is the one that I wanted to watch. This video actually speaks about the worst problem in World of Warcraft, both retail and classic. And it's called Why Tanks Are Always in Demand in World of Warcraft. Now, I haven't watched all of it. I just watched the first minute to just confirm it was kind of genuine. And yeah, it seems really interesting. So I wanted to check it out.
Starting to notice, there is a tank shortage in World of Warcraft Midnight. There are groups looking for tanks for 20 to 40 minutes on end and not finding one in higher end content. Now, I do want to stress that this is more so talking about the dungeon and pugging scene than it is about raids. Typically in raids, guilds have tanks that are filling those roles, and those are very coveted positions. I'm talking about other group content. Right now, tanks are the bottleneck, and it is not by a small margin. For standard content and standard 5-man group content, you've got 1 tank, 1 healer, and 3 DPS. That means that 20% of the player base should be tanking, 20% should be healing, and around 60% should be doing DPS. An important disclaimer. Data for Azeroth tracks achievement-linked player profiles, which isn't 100% of all players, but it is one of the largest public data sets available. And if we look at those data sets of max-level players, tanks really only represent somewhere between 11 and 13% of retail max-level players in Midnight. Healer,
damn. Even though they are 13% of the population, they represent all of the people who are responsible for actually finishing the dungeon. That's impressive. I actually love it. That's why I love being a tank, to be honest with y'all. It's the best feeling in the entire world. You know that you're in high demand, and whenever you want to find a group, you'll always find. So it's just really, really great to see that we get appreciated. But I already know what he's going to talk about. The moment... the reason that tank players aren't really existing anymore is because the way they're treated inside of World of Warcraft. I'm gonna wait for him to say it. I'm 99% sure he's about to say it.
Are somewhere between 18 and 22%, and DPS represent between 65 and 70%.
What a surprise.
We know that tanks need to fill 20%, so we are at a 40% deficit relative to demand. This is not a small imbalance. This is a bottleneck for tanking specifically. By design, the way that World of Warcraft class and specs are designed does not lend itself to players choosing tank. In fact, only 6 specs and 6 classes can actually tank in the first place, which represents 15.4% of the options available to the player. I'm talking about Protection Warrior, Protection Paladin, Blood and Death Knight, Guardian Druid, Brewmaster Monk, and Vengeance Demon Hunter. Within the game itself, 7 classes can be healers, or 7 specs, 6 can be tanks, and 26, including Augmentation Evoker, can be DPS.
Absolutely. And you had the exact same problem with Marvel Rivals. I know because I played that game. You have so many duelists, but you have 0 tanks and healers in comparison. It's insane, right? There's a saturation of damage dealers, and there's not enough tanks and healing options. So if you really want to find a nice character to play, you can easily go to DPS and fight something that suits your tasting. But whenever it comes to healing and tanking, it's very, very small pool to choose from. So if you don't like any, you're pretty much just forced to DPS. So yes, they do need to add more variety. They do need to make that Warlock tank thing where you do metamorphosis, or maybe use a demon to tank. That could have been cool. They should have do something innovative. But again, we're talking about Blizzard here. Let's see. Tanks are in demand because you need tanks to hold aggro, and most people prefer playing DPS. This is the same... basically any game with Holy Trinity. Even Overwatch had a problem for a time. 100%. 100%. I mean, we can literally just say that the problem is that most people just want to DPS. Most people just want to deal damage. That is 100% true. I know. I mean, I love tanking more than I love DPSing, but that wasn't always the case. Whenever I was younger, I always looked at DPS. I never even thought about healing or tanking. Like, it was always damage. So, I completely understand. Yeah, I mean, it is. I was just debating playing Marvel Rivals only for like 3 times that far. I don't go into that. You're not going to get out of it.
That means only 15.4%, or 6 out of the 39, can't even be tanks to begin with. Healers represent 7 out of the 39 specs, or about 18%, 17.9. And DPS are 26 out of 39, which is basically essentially 2/3, right? 66.6 repeating percent. There are many classes. In fact, 7 of the classes don't even have access to a tank spec if they wanted one. That's 7 out of the 13 classes, or about 53.8% of classes that cannot tank no matter what. There are also DPS-only classes. I'm talking about Hunter, Rogue, Mage, and Warlock. That's 4 out of 13 classes don't even have...
Well, yeah, but the people who play Hunter and Rogue would never tank in the first place, because we all know who play these characters.
Access to another role.
And they're not fun to be around.
That's 30.8% of the classes in the game. So 31% don't even have the option to do anything besides DPS. And then we've got classes that can heal but don't have the option to tank. That's Priest, Shaman, and Evoker. That's 23.1% of the game, 3 out of 13. Another real reason that tanks are rare isn't math whatsoever. It's pressure. When you're a tank, you're setting the pace, choosing the route, controlling pulls, and sometimes you're the reason the group succeeds or wipes. And if something goes wrong, guess what? You're going to get blamed. DPS
Absolutely.
can mess up constantly, stand in fire, hide in the chaos.
Thank you. Oh my god, thank you. I feel so vindicated right now. I actually feel like someone sees me. That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, this is so true. You have... I'm even go as far as to argue that most of the time that you wipe is because the DPS overpulled, or maybe he didn't want to wait and just pulled so much threat that the mob was taken away from you, and they literally just blame you. Because I had one time when someone DPS'd like a madman and didn't stop and blamed me for not holding aggro. It's insane. Some players are like that, and it's so crazy. And you know 99% of the time they're gonna play Rogue or Hunter. You know that, even though some mage players, they're scummy. Some mage players, not all of them, it's like 50-50, but still, some of y'all are nasty. So yeah, 100%, there is a huge social pressure being inflicted upon tank mains. 100%, he's right about that. Everything kind of relies on your shoulders, and if you fail, everyone dies. And that's huge pressure, but at the same time, if other person fail, it's also on you somehow. So it's really just weird thing to say. I don't like that mentality. But again, it's more retail mentality than other MMO mentality, because you don't really have that in other games. It's just World of Warcraft.
Tank makes one mistake, they're in the spotlight under the microscope, and everybody notices. Tanking isn't just playing the game. It's leading four strangers who expect you to already know everything.
Yeah.
And
Exactly. People already expect you to know the dungeon in and out, the perfect route, the shortest time. Everyone is min-maxing, and nobody's willing to let you do a single mistake or maybe a mishap that can cause a slight delay in you finishing the dungeon. It's so cringe.
in fact, the burden of knowledge and being educated in this game falls harder on a tank than it does for any other role in the game whatsoever. Tanks need to look up guides for optimal routes, particularly for Mythic Plus, where players expect them to know the dungeon inside and out, and the learning curve is way steeper in terms of what game knowledge you are expected to have when you log into the game.
And by doing that, you're ostracizing new players from trying tanks, because they can do anything. Because the moment they try a tank, people will just constantly yell at them and you kick them out of the group. So automatically, you just go them towards playing DPS. Because healer, it's less likely they will play, but like DPS, yeah, it's pretty much the only option left for them. Because they know they're gonna be ostracized otherwise.
The supply of tanks is not keeping up with demand, and that's why queue times are becoming ridiculous. We're seeing tanks being able to instant queue, and a lot of players sitting, either having to...
Oh, you're right. I need to change my YouTube thing. My bad. I should have changed it from Guild Wars. I'm not sure you can do it mid-stream. No, you can do it mid-stream. Wait, I'll change it. I'll change it to video games. That way, nobody would be confused. Because I'm on Guild Wars right now, I think. Yeah, there we go. I'll change it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. It's just on gaming now. It makes sense. It makes sense. There we go.
Choose between doing lower level content in order to find a tank, or simply not being able to get their weeklies done for their vault. In order for this to change, a couple things would need to happen. I believe in offering solutions in addition to my gripes, right? For tanking, we need to make sure that we are buffing tanks to make them all viable. It can't just be one spec that works in high-end Mythic Plus and in high-end raids.
Aren't tanks all viable right now? I'm not that familiar with the retail WoW meta. I'm playing Protection War and it feels kind of dope. I don't know. Maybe some tanks are just better. But again, I'm not really familiar with the meta.
Which too often we see in terms of balancing issues. Secondly, you need to incentivize tanking. There's really no other way to do it. It may seem unfair to the other roles and classes and specs, but if there is no incentive, people are not going to pick up the class or the role. They're going to sit on their DPS and not care.
Yep.
I would also recommend adding more tank specs. There's been talk of a Shaman tank and a Warlock tank for years now. What are we waiting
Absolutely.
for? These need to be priority
Just like I
additions to the
said
game.
before.
Give players more options. Listen, I love tanking, and I'll deal with the toxic hate and backseat gaming I get from other players when I pull one extra mob I wasn't supposed to, or if I forget to blow the boss a kiss before I pull him. Unfortunately, the culture here has also been reinstilled, reinvigorated, and reinforced by the player base. We do not treat each other well enough. and it makes higher pressure roles and higher importance roles way harder to do. When you're paying for a game and you do not want to be yelled at by strangers on the internet, I get it, you can mute chat, I get it, you can add people to the ignore list, but if by default you are already stepping on eggshells, that makes people not want to pick up the role. There has to be some sort of cultural and community shift in order for players to care about even making an attempt here. What's the incentive to even learn tanking now? Do you want to be in the spotlight? Do you want to be under a microscope? Do you want to get yelled at? No, most players don't. Those of us with thick skin that feel like being the leader of a group, yeah, we can stick it out and we can make it happen, but that doesn't service the vast majority of the player base.
No, because if you had FF14 way of tanking where they get to do the coolest stuff you've ever seen in an MMORPG, that would incentivize players to pick tank more often. Because in Final Fantasy XIV, if you've seen some of the raids out there or some of the dungeons like, what was his name? The samurai Susano? Something like that. It was incredible. There's a sequence where a giant boss with a giant sword that is half... No, it's not half. It's literally more than half the battlefield that you're fighting on in size. He just smacks you down and you as the tank has to stop him. It's such a sick sequence to go through and it makes people just want to play tank. But you don't have cool stuff like that in World of Warcraft. In World of Warcraft, it's like, oh, you have to kite, you have to do the thing. It's the same old boring route we had for ages. You need to add tank-specific cool moments to incentivize people playing a tank. That would completely change the sphere around tank.
Tanking needs to be more accessible. If you've got suggestions or ideas, please drop a comment below. I would love to hear how we could fix this together or what changes we could suggest.
Ban every single World of Warcraft player because they lost their mind. But absolutely. I mean, Blizzard cultivate this audience and it kind of sucks. It is what it is, man. But at the end of the day, I mean, again, it's all Blizzard doing. They can easily fix that. They can easily make it change. But they choose not to every single time. So yeah. I guess that was all for this video. I'm going to leave a link in the description, guys. Obviously, you should watch this guy's video later, and we can move on to the next one.